Tell us a little bit about Tombstone, how you originated here and all that.
Silver was discovered here in 1877, late 1876 by a man by the name of Ed Shefflin. He actually was a prospector, but not a producer of mines, so he only stayed here a little short time, but he discovered first was Tombstone, the mining claim Tombstone. The reason he did that is because when he left Camp Huachuca, over here, it's down Fort Huachuca, soldiers told him, said, Ed, all you're going to find over there is your tombstone. So when he made his first strike, he called it the Tombstone, and then he made his next strike, which was the graveyard. He wasn't too excited about those two strikes, and as a matter of fact, they both didn't go very far. But the story has it, him and his brother Al Shefflin, who he had commissioned to come down and help him and Richard Gerd, he was out hunting for some meat, and he stuck his pick into this vein, and he says, Al, looky here, what a lucky cuss I am. And he named that mine the Lucky Cuss, which was the first major producing mine in Tombstone, and it's about a mile and a half back to our right side here, maybe a little less than that. And then on and on, then he located the Tough Nut Mine, which is, this was a tough nut to crack, the Tough Nut Mine. He named all of his mining claims after what happened when he first made the discovery. And, you know, and actually that's what brought my family here was my great-grandfather was doing a story about the boom of the Southwest and the capture of Geronimo, and he ran into the same soldiers at Camp Huachuca, and they told him about this fellow, Ed Shefflin, out here in the hills, and he came out and found him, and they spent about 3 months together, and my great-granddad was actually from Pau, France, educated in the United States and was a reporter for San Francisco Chronicle, but Ed convinced him to go back to California, sell all of his stuff. He was out of San Francisco, and come back and haul timbers into the mine for him.
Wow.
And he did that, and he actually gave my great-granddad a mine which is about 3 miles south here. It's called the State of Maine Mine. And my great-grandfather took over $3 million worth of silver and gold out of that mine in 10 years. So
wow.
he became a very wealthy prospector, reporter, or whatever else. He was a true entrepreneur. And, you know, my family's been here ever since.
Wow.
The only industry we have in Tombstone is tourism. And I'm not complaining about it. It's nice to have the tourists come here and see all of the old buildings and learn about the history of Tombstone. And there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of famous gunfights and a lot of famous people come here. And really what made it happen was the silver and gold. And if it hadn't been for the silver, Wyatt Earp and all of his brothers and all of the other guys wouldn't have been here. They don't care. Great-granddad hired Billy Clanton to break some horses for him.
Wow.
And when he was shot at the OK Corral, he had $82 in his pocket that my great-granddad had paid him for breaking the horses.
Oh my goodness.
My granddad, who, you know, he used to tell me, you know, my dad would not allow you to mention the Earp name in his house. Because he said those dunches, whatever, come in here and started killing my neighbors, and then they were, you know, we had a ranch, they had a ranch next to us.
Yeah.
You know, $82 was a lot of money.
Yeah, and they, you know, my great-granddad had a big ranch from the Dragoon Mountains to the San Pedro River, and
wow.
And which, you know, back in the Depression, my granddad had the ranch, which still had the ranch here, and the cows used to run up and down the streets.
Yeah.
And so my granddad finally fenced the city limits in and to keep the cows out. So, you know, my favorite, naturally, is the historical. The birdcage, you know, there's artifacts and things that was there in 1880s. You know, the family that owns it, they never took them out, they just left it there. And you know, and I always remember the story my dad talks about. During the Depression, he'd walk up here and there was a little building beside the birdcage, just a little lean-to. And there was an old man at the time owned the birdcage. He actually made soup every morning for the kids walking to school and gave them soup. And so my dad, he says, that old man can make the best soup in the world. He said, I'm not sure if it's because we were all hungry, but he said, they're really good. But, and that was in the early 30s, which was actually the grandparents of the man that owns it now. So.
Okay.
You growing up here, what is your favorite part of growing up here?
Well, I've always liked the small town. You know, everybody knows everybody else. Sometimes it's a little uncomfortable. Everybody knows your business, or they think they do. But,
Exactly.
you know, it's like any other small town. But we're, you know, the school was great. We had one of the best schools in the county, or probably southern Arizona, and you know, we just had good people, and there's still good people here. But it's a different environment. It's a different kind of life. We used to, you know, everybody'd be driving in. The post office was right here, and people, they'd be parking to go in and get the mail, and you know, and then the drugstore was 2 doors down, and then a little further down was the bank, and you know, so everybody would come to town, park right in here, and do all of their daily business. And then a lot of these guys like to come in the middle of the day, so then they'd end up over at the Crystal Palace or one of the saloons and finish the day out, and then go back home and tell their wife they've been working all day. So
I think that's something we might do when we quit working.
Right, yeah.
Into one of those. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dusty, what is the population of Tombstone these days?
we're about 1,250 people right now.
That's great.
If you take the surrounding areas, we're probably over 4,000 people live in Holiday Estates, out Middle March Road, and you know, and a lot of these folks won't let me annex them, and I, you know.
In its heyday, though, what was Tombstone at population-wise?
That was up to 15,000.
Okay.
And it was one of the largest cities west of the Mississippi for
Yes,
a while.
actually, it wasn't a Wild West rootin' tootin' town. It was more sophisticated. We had dance halls, we had theaters, you know, we had something going on. And the guys wore the fancy coats, and the ladies wore the fancy dresses, you know, and we had a lot of investment bankers in town. We had mine entrepreneurs, over 200 mines working at the same time in this area. And one of the problems they did have back in those days was is the guys start mining on a strike, and he'd start following it and go into the neighbors. And they said, well, you can't do that. Well, there's a law called the Apex Law, and if you can prove that it originated on your property, you can follow it as far as you want to.
Oh.
Now they're all in court trying to prove that it came from their property and not their neighbors. and that's when a guy by the name of E.B. Gage came in, and they were all in litigation, shut down, and he says, you know what? He says, I'm just going to buy all of the mining claims. And he came in about every mining claim in Tombstone, called it the Tombstone Consolidated Mines. My granddad had property all over this area, and great-granddad. And as I said, this was the main road, went straight out, went down to Contention or to Benson, or you go on further out and be to Camp Huachuca. But they started burying people down here about a half mile out of town. And my great-granddad came into the mayor and said, hey, I want to tell you guys something. You're burying people on my property. Oh, no. He says, we thought that was state land or BLM land or whatever. And no, so he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to deed you that land to the city of Tombstone. However, you cannot charge anybody for a burial plot if they live here 1 year preceding their death. And it's still that way today. And if you happen to get out there, there's a plaque there that talks about that. And then just on the other side of the road from the cemetery is where I live, and that's been in the family since 1800s.
What was his name? What was your great-grandfather?
John Escapule. Another story about John Escapule. He looked very much like Doc Holliday. And when I say they, the historians was using my granddad's photo as John Doc Holliday, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Until the city historian saw it in True West magazine. He called up and said, Bob Bose Bell, he says, hey, Bose, that's not John Holliday. Yeah, it is. I got a picture right there. He said, no, that is John Escapule.
Oh my goodness.
He says, you're kidding. So now they've got all these pictures on stuff all over the country.
Exactly.
And there's still some that show up today. You know, and if you look on the internet, you'll see the people talk about it today about how.
Do you resemble him? Do you look like him?
No, I'm better looking here.
Very good.
No, actually, he was French, Basque French, and kind of a smaller guy. I take after my mother's side of the family, which is Irish and Indian.
Okay.
But my dad pretty much resembled him. He was a smaller man with the.
Have you ever sat out here at night and have you ever seen any of the old souls walking around?
Well, to answer that question, I worked for the sheriff's office for a while in 1969 through 1978. And being out here on the streets at night, you could hear some really, really strange things. One thing that really happened that just hair raised up in the back of your neck is my wife and I owned Big Nose Kate's, and the ashtrays was always in a different place, and there's things moved around in the guy that did the cleaning for us, he says, I can't clean for you anymore. I said, what's the matter with you? He says, there's ghosts in here. He says, I can't handle it.
Oh my goodness.
I said, yeah, right. Sure. He says, oh yeah, there's noises you can't believe. I said, all right. So I took and set up a microphone. I had a real sensitive, Shure microphone and a good recorder. Set it up on top of the bar with, where it's up, nothing get to it. You could hear us walk out the door, lock the door, get in the car, leave. And about an hour or so into the recording, there was a hair-curling scream. I mean, it set us up. I went, oh no, oh no.
You're a believer, huh?
Yeah, and actually, so we called the Arizona University and told them about our recording. They said, we want to see it, and they said it's authentic. We can't explain where it was coming from, because it didn't come from the street. It came from somewhere in the building, within the confines of that
Did it sound
building.
like a woman or a man?
It was a
Could you
woman
tell?
screaming.
It was a woman screaming.
Woman screaming,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
without a doubt, it was a woman screaming, yeah.
Man.
One more story about that, and then I won't talk about ghosts anymore. I had I called it the backdoor saloon, which they ultimately ended up turning it into a kitchen. But I was working that night, and I was getting ready to close, and I was washing all the glasses and everything, and I saw this guy walk in, and he was wearing a black coat and a black hat, and I said, what do you want? Whiskey. I went, well, and I looked in the mirrors on each side, and there was nobody in the mirror. I looked up, and he's gone. I went, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't wash any more glasses. Nope, I'm out of here. I'm out of
Oh
here.
my gosh.
Yeah.
I think I got goosebumps.
Yeah,
so
I think we might
so-
want
Come
to
on,
do guys.
nobody take us for the ghost town.
Yeah.
Ghost
Yeah, no,
town.
so that building, that was the Grand Hotel. And also the Birdcage is known for the ghosts. I mean,
Yeah.
they do a ghost tour
Nova
there.
told us about that.
Yeah, it's really good. And you know what? Let me talk about, you guys say, are we here yet?
Yeah.
You know what? You're here. This
Yeah.
is where you need to be coming to. And we have a lot of facilities for RVs. And actually we're just working on a dry camp area. There is nothing in the city code that allows people to dry camp. And these folks down on the south end of 3rd Street, they got a bull riding set up there, and there's people coming in. And these guys don't want to get too far away from the activity, so they don't mind dry camping. And so I kind of bent the rule a little bit and say, okay, we will allow dry camping. And boy, the weekends they do the dry camping, there may be 25, 30 RVs sitting down there, and then they all have a big party there, a big bonfire going in the middle. And I said, I'll run home and get my RV. looks like fun to me, The nice thing about Tombstone, it is the real West. It's the real true West.
Right.
It's not a movie set that was put together and they're making it as no, this is the real deal here.
Right, it's the real deal. It's
Yeah,
authentic, and
yeah,
everybody needs to experience it at least once, or many, many other times. Because there's too much to see.
You can't just say, oh, I was in Tombstone, spent a couple hours. Well, then you didn't see anything.
That's right. You're exactly right.
You could spend 2 hours in the courthouse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget to tell you about the rose tree. It's the world's largest rose bush in Tombstone. It is here.
It's beautiful.
And it is beautiful, and it has an outstanding museum.
It's the world's largest.
And it's owned by another old-time family, the old mining family. So.
Mayor Dusty, thank you so much. I mean, this has been, I mean,
I'm
this is
a
fascinating.
privilege. I mean, we're honored. I do have a question. As mayor, can you outlaw these flies?
I've been trying, especially down around my stagecoach where the horses are.
Oh yeah, imagine so.